Hey everyone! Today I wanted to sew the Star Student lunchbox from Peekaboo Patterns. I found a hack that Shannon Gale did, and it makes a zipper loop to do the lining and the exterior, so you don't have to do it so much as a drop-in lining. So I'm going to be doing it that way. In order to do that, you have to cut your bottom panel piece the same height as your zipper panel piece. And then you need 2 extra pieces. Well, it's actually 4 because you need 2 exterior and 2 linings. It's 1 1/4 inches by 9 1/2 inches long. So 1 1/4 tall, 9 1/2 long. I put woven fuse on all my exterior pieces. I'm going to use waterproof canvas as my lining, and I've spray basted all my exterior pieces and put the Insulbright shiny side out. So it should go all the pieces, all the exterior pieces will have Insulbright shiny side out. Oh, and then I like a little bit more stability in my lunch boxes, so I cut 2 pieces of Peltex that are 5/8 of an inch smaller than the front and back panel pieces. So I go ahead and make like a whole other panel piece. This is the original. It's about 5/8 of an inch smaller all the way around. And I believe that is all that I do differently. I do make sure I do the mesh pocket. I believe that's it. So let's get to sewing. Okay, so I'm going to start off on my home machine so I can use a zigzag stitch. I'm going to grab my mesh pocket and my fold over elastic. I'm pretty sure I don't use the right size fold over elastic, it's just whatever I have on hand. So I'm just going to go through and kind of fold this a little bit so it can get used to the crease. I'm going to grab clip and mark the centers. Of my fold over elastic. And of my mesh pocket. I'm using some mesh from Emmeline Bags, and I'm pretty sure it's by Annie's mesh. Okay, I'm going to mark or match the center points of the elastic and the mesh, and just fold that right on over. And then it's stretchy, the fold over elastic, which is why I'm going to use the zigzag stitch. My home machine is really super duper loud, so I'm going to apologize ahead of time. So I'm going to go ahead and clip these one more time in the in-betweens. My home machine doesn't really care for stretching while you're sewing, so I'm going to try to help it as much as possible. Okay, so I'm set to a stretch stitch, a zigzag stitch. Just a normal one will do. You don't need anything fancy. But you do want to make sure that you catch all of your mesh in your fold over elastic and when you're doing your zigzag stitch. Okay, and stretch it as you go. I'm kind of trying to like push my mesh upwards while I'm stretching it through, just to ensure that I've caught it all the way. I do have a piece that already popped out here where I haven't sewn yet, so just going to readjust that and make sure it gets all the way in there. Just a little bit left here to go. Still making sure that gets in there all the way. It really does like to pop out of there. So now you're going to have a somewhat wavy piece of mesh. I thought I missed a spot, but I didn't. It just kind of bulks up a little bit weird right there. So there it is. Now we'll come over to your regular machine that you use to sew with. Grab a lining main panel. Like I said, I'm using waterproof canvas. And then you're going to match your bottom curves up and clip around. Because this was stretch, you're going to have to stretch it to fit. See, I have like a little, not enough room there. You will stretch that out to get it to fit over there. And then it pops up. And then we're gonna baste this around. Just an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I've got a number 5 on my Juki DU 1181N. I'm using Amann Tech 70 thread. I got mine from I always mess up the name. Sewing Gold. There it is, Sewing Gold. I did have to order this on the phone with him or an email. And I have a 18 needle in here, size 18 needle. Okay, our pocket is basted on. And then we'll move right along. go ahead and grab our zipper. And then we want to grab those extra pieces we cut. I told you earlier it was 2 exterior and 2 lining. It's actually only 1 exterior and 1 lining. So what we're going to do is start on the open end of our zipper pull and put it right sides together, matching up the raw ends, the short end, like this. Sorry about my fingernails. And then on the waterproof canvas side, this is the right side, or what I'm using at least. It's the textured side, and then the smooth side is the wrong side. This side will melt instantly. This textured side will not melt. Or at least it won't melt as fast. So we're gonna make a zipper sandwich, putting right sides together. And we're going to sew that with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I moved to a 3 stitch length. Backstitch at the beginning and the end there. So then we have our zipper sandwich. So we're going to come down to the opposite end here, down here, and we're going to do the same thing with the other end. So we're going to form a giant loop, right sides together. Then we'll grab the lining side, make a zipper sandwich, being careful not to twist anything up when you bring it up to the back. Zipper sandwich that in, right sides together, sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Backstitch at the beginning and the end. Do make sure that your zipper pull was inside. Then I just pop that apart and we have this back here now. I'm going to top stitch both this side and this side. I use a number 5 for my top stitch length. I usually don't bother backstitching at the beginning or the end of a top stitch like that. Because it will be sewn in later. I am just using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'll move you real quick so we can see here. We've got a zipper loop. So let's go ahead and find our quarter points. So what I'm going to do is fold in half the zipper panel that we just made, matching up those seams right there at the end. And this will be our part of our quarter points. So I'm going to clip, clip, and then we'll do the other end. Then we'll open those up and match the two clipped marks together, and that will give us our other 2 quarter marks. If you didn't already, find the centers and quarter marks of your exterior panels. This one is going to be my top panel. So let me just double check that I have my quarter marks made. I do. I'm going to flip this over so it's upside down looking at me. Okay, we've made our quarter marks, so I'm going to go ahead and match up my quarter marks to my exteriors quarter marks. I don't like the way that one looks. I guess it's right. It just looks really off. Right, then I'm going to ease into my curves. So I'm going to start on one side, go as far as I can before I need to start curving. And then we're going to kind of like pop that curve in. So go as far as I can straight. Go to the other side of that curve, go as far as I can straight, and ease that curve in the rest of the way. You can clip your curves if you're having a bit of a time getting them in there just right. So again, as far as you can, straight, and then ease that little bit of a curve in. So while I'm doing this, I'll let you know that I'm using cotton Lycra fabric with 1 layer of woven fuse, and I have insulfleece from Pellon as my insulator. I think I said that at the beginning of the video, but I can't really remember, so here we are. Now we're going to base stitch around this. I'm going to start in the back. We're going to base stitch around this. I'm going to start in the back. Just going to do a small little 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. If you want to unzip your zipper going around the curves to help get in there just a little bit better, feel free to do that. Still trying to make sure there's no puckers. You can move your zipper around if you still want to. I'm not sure what is going on with this zipper. I just keep finding more and more puckers. So I'm just trying to smooth those out as we go here. It's like every clip I undo, there's more puckers. So I'm kind of just going with the flow here. Smoothing out those puckers, hopefully. I'm just gonna push this out real quick. Make sure there are actually no puckers. There's not. I don't know how that worked out, but it did. So it looks really nice. Go ahead and flip that back out because we're not done yet. We're gonna open our zipper about halfway or so. And we're going to attach our mesh panel. So I'm gonna move you over here. We're gonna put the opening at the top of our zipper. The bottom of the mesh will be with the bottom of our zipper panel here. We're gonna put it right sides together, and we should have quarter marks on our lining pieces already. So we're gonna match the quarter marks from previously. I know I have clips on here, it doesn't matter. We're gonna turn it right side out, so. Okay, so this is the bottom where the mesh panel is. This is the top. In the top, we're going to leave an opening, probably about 4 or 5 inches or so. I've got 4 inches marked on mine. And we're gonna sew with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. I'm going to turn my stitch length back down to a 3. All the way around, I should say earlier, like I was saying earlier, to these 2 marks. Starting from one, going to the other. You can also use a 1/4 of an inch stitch length here if you would like. I prefer with my number 5 zippers a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So as you're going, you'll be able to feel your zipper through here. Definitely want to make sure that's smooth and flush and no lumps are happening. Also, if you feel like you needed more clips than just the 4 we put on there, definitely don't hesitate to use tons of clips. Use less clips, whatever you're comfortable with. Just make sure you leave that turning hole in the top, not in the bottom, where your mesh is. My lining is a little bit bigger down here than the rest of my fabric, so we'll adjust to that as needed. Make sure you keep smoothing out that zipper. You definitely don't want to sew over it. Smoothing that zipper out still. And we're right back up to that other line now. Make sure you backstitch. Sorry about that. All the stray threads. Okay, so we're gonna reach in here and push these curves in and turn this right side out. While we're pushing out our curves, we can check to make sure we caught all the spots. I do really like to not catch all of my curves, or all of my fabric rather. Okay, looks good. We've got a zipper lid. We're gonna grab one of our Peltex pieces and shove this in. And then spread that back out. I really folded mine up, putting that in there. Try to make sure it's all spread out nicely. It should fit in there pretty good. Then what we're gonna do is take this, this opening we left here, and we're gonna fold it under. It's probably gonna be about 3/8 of an inch, should be at least. And close that there. You can press it if you need to, use a pin to help keep it closed. I'm gonna start here where I'm for my sewing, because we're gonna top stitch all the way around this now. I like to quadruple check that I got that closed and covering the base stitch from before. So like I said, I like to use a number 5 for my top stitch length. And here we go. I'm not gonna backstitch at the beginning, because when I come all the way back around, I'm going to go over it and then we'll backstitch. So it'll secure that in there. Now, I don't know if you just saw, but I flipped this up so we can go around the curve a lot easier. When you, before you turn this out, if you want to clip your seam allowance down, you can absolutely do that. It can be a little bit bulky around those curves if you don't clip it down. Try to make sure you keep your lining pushed back too. These curves can be quite hard, so go slow if you need to. I didn't start at the very beginning of my whole opening, so I wanted to make sure that that was still nice and tidy. I am going to check it one more time. Okay, so here is where I started. I'm going to come over that stitching by a few stitches, and then we're going to back stitch. I like to do as little amount of back stitching as possible when it comes to the exterior, so you don't see. And here you have it. The zipper lid of a lunchbox. So now we're going to attach the handle to the zipper panel. You're going to need your zipper panel main piece, your webbing, and your zipper panel pattern piece. So I've got nylon webbing here, so I'm going to melt the ends. And then I'm going to grab my marking pen. This is dark fabric, so I have this Tandy marking pen. I got it from like Amazon. Tandy leather marking pen. It works really great. I've gone ahead and cut like an X out of my handle placement mark. And we are going to put that X on the fabric and then flip it over and make one on the other side. I'm not sure if my X actually showed up. There's this X for sure. Oh, there's the other one. Gotta love dark fabric. Alright, so what we're going to do is fold one side of our webbing under 1 inch. I'm going to put a little clip on it for now, and then we're going to do the same thing to the other side, 1 inch. So we're going to center that up on the X we made. So my X is on like the window right here-ish. I'm going to put the center on the X. I'm just going to hold that in place. And we're going to do a little barn door stitching. Now, I always forget how to make the barn door where you don't have to sew over it multiple times, but the sewing over it multiple times is just going to reinforce it, so I'm going to go with it. So I'm going to sew all the way forwards and back. I'm going to pivot and sew up at a diagonal to the other corner of my folded under webbing here. Then I'm going to pivot and sew straight down, and I'll sew right back up. I want to be about right there, and we'll pivot and go straight across. Let's see. We'll pivot and go down to the opposite corner here. Once more, going to sew across this bottom area. And go back up this last side. And stitch right back down that side as well. Now, there is literally no rhyme or reason to how I just sewed that on there, except for the fact that we have the barn door X in there. So we are going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to center this up, and you're going to notice that we have a lump. It's supposed to be there. Okay, so here we go again. Like I said, there's literally no rhyme to my reason here. You just want to make sure you have that X in the center. I'm going to sew across the top here and backstitch, because I do want to do my pivot here to get that X. And I am, going to stitch back over the bottom. And now we have both our boxes. So this is what we have. So keeping with this piece here, we're going to grab our bottom panel and we're going to attach it to our zipper loop. If you have directional fabric, make sure it's going the right way. And we're going to match it up right sides together. And we're going to sew it at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then we have, this is the other raw edge, and the other side of your zipper panel, we're going to bring the bottom panel all the way over to the other edge and make a loop just like we did with the small zipper panel. And we're going to sew these together at a 1/2 inch. You'll notice I didn't backstitch. It's fine. We're going to top stitch now, so it's going to secure those stitches. We're going to top stitch onto our bottom panel. So we want our seam allowance pushed towards the bottom panel. Again, I didn't backstitch. I know. But we're going to be attaching it, so we'll be sewing over all those areas. Now we have this like zipper exterior panel loop deal. Here's the bottom panel. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with the lining side. Right sides together, sewing it at a 1/2 inch. Now I never top stitch my lining panels. Feel free to if you would like. Right sides together with the last exterior or lining side. Alrighty. Now we're going to quarter these. So doing the same thing as we did with the zipper loop, we're going to bring our two seams together and find the center and the other side. Ooh, I already have it marked. Go me. And it's still the right center. So I'm going to clip all these sides. Bring the, oops, I only clipped one side of my zipper panel, or my bottom panel rather. Okay, my clips are matched up and we're gonna find the other quarter marks. Ooh, I also have these marked. Wow, that means even after sewing, I still have the right quarter marks. I'm gonna give myself a little pat on the back for that. That means I didn't mess up the seam allowance. So I am gonna trim down this seam allowance to about 1/4 of an inch. I got myself a new pair of scissors. They're so much quieter, so light. They're the Kai 7000 series. I really, really like them so far. My gingers are great. They're just very heavy. And they hurt my wrists after a while. Ooh, I have markings on here. Just gonna put the clips on there. Yes. And match those clips. Oh, see, it's a good thing I did this all the way. I do not have any markings on, oh wait, there's one. I have one marking. But I have both markings on this side. Not sure what happened there. Oh well, we've got them marked now. So go ahead and grab your top. We're going to be attaching the loop we just made to the other side of the zipper now. Hopefully you still have your quarter marks. I lost one. So we're going to try to get that back by folding this in half here. And right there should be my quarter mark. Looks pretty in line with my other side. Okay, so we want the handle on the opposite side as our bottom. So I have directional fabric. Okay, we have our bottoms here This is our bottom panel. I believe this is the direction I want to clip it in. So what I'm going to do real quick is just match up the bottom panels of both the zipper loop and the, let's just call it the exterior loop. And then I'm going to flip it downward just to make sure it's going the right direction. And we are good there. I just got lucky, I guess. So then we're going to flip this the rest of the way out. And we're going to match the rest of our quarter marks. Alright, so if you need to, go ahead and clip a little bit more. I am definitely going to clip a little bit more. Maybe not too much, it stays in there pretty well as it is. Just fits in there all snug as a bug like. Definitely make sure that zipper pull is not in your seam. So now we have this. We're going to baste this on. Every time I baste with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And I always baste with a number 5. Can you see right here how those bottom panels just match up so perfectly? I've got that dangly donut pull. I definitely want to make sure that's not in my seam. I'm stressing that so much right now because I actually sewed through one of mine just recently. And yes, this is still the same needle that I sewed through it with. So you'll notice I just fell off there. It's not a big deal since we're just basting this on. It still is basted, but barely, but it's good. All right, so okay, let's open our zipper all the way up. So we have it looking like this. Then we'll take our right side of our lining and put it right sides together with our back. You want to match up those side seams on the bottom panels. And then, of course, your quarter marks if you have them on your fabric. Marking them for this is probably best instead of clipping them. I do have tiny cut marks in mine on the exterior fabric only, and it's about 1/8 of an inch in. So they're very, very, very small cut marks. Okay, you've got this clipped all the way around, right sides together. So now we're going to sew it on. Now I used a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance earlier. If you did not, use the corresponding seam allowance to what you used. So I'm going to start in the back. Got my 3 set. It's going to get very bulky when I get up to this clip. Again, very bulky right here. One last thing before we actually sew anything more. If you want to add some rivets for extra security right here, this is like your last opportunity to do that. So, anyways, if we flip this down now, smooth this out. We can top stitch around this. you want to give it a press before you do your top stitching. So I'm going to start in the back, and I'm going to start on one of these really bulky corners. My machine likes it better if I start on the bulky spot. I did backstitch on that one because it's a very bulky spot, and my machine I just want to make sure it's good in there. So I'm making sure my lining's pressed down towards the bottom. Be very careful with your zipper. And I'm going to hand crank all this bulk right here. So I'm using that cotton Lycra. It really likes to tear if you don't stitch it just right. Okay, making sure that lining's still pressed downwards. Thread there. I actually don't know where I just clipped that thread, so okay. So now we're almost done. Alright, so this is what we have right now. Alright, last little part here. I'm going to go ahead and open my zipper up and fold my exterior panel away from my lining panel. So it's going to look like this. Okay, we're going to grab our exterior main panel. If you don't have your clip marks, make sure that you do them. Folding them in half, marking the clips, or folding in half, then putting the clips together and finding the other the other two. Wow. I am getting tired, I think. All right, I want this to go the same direction as my exterior the top. So I'm going to put it the same direction, just like that. I hope. Let's be real here. Now I'm going to match up my quarter points. I don't think that quarter point is quite right, so I'm just going to clip around here. And we'll find out. Something is not quite right. There we go. It's lining up with my insulfleece, which my insulfleece is a little bit taller than my fabric. So we are going to have to make sure we catch all the things. Okay. I'm going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance. No, I lied. 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, I believe. We're going with 3/8 at least. I really like to sew this way so I can get right into those curves real nicely without having to do too much work, too much moving of fabric, anything like that. That was the bottom seam. I'm probably going to have to go back over that. I'm definitely gonna go back over that. I can see I already missed it. We'll do this one too. So although this one liked me, it doesn't look like I caught all of it anyways. Alright, so I've grabbed those. Now let's see if we've missed it anywhere else. Definitely suggest everyone to check this before you sew on the bottom lining. So just go ahead and reach in there, open that zipper up the rest of the way, and push out the bottom. Yeah, because I've missed a piece here. So I'm going to add a clip in there. Really pull those seams away from each other to make sure you caught it all. Surprisingly, that's the only one piece I missed. Okay, so now that we've checked all of our seams, go ahead and turn it back out. And we're going to repeat for the lining. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. I'm not going to bother doing the rest of those, but I am going to leave a 4-inch opening again in the front of the bag. We're going to sew this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm just over here saying to myself, leave the opening, leave the opening. I love to stitch the opening shut. It's not a big deal. If you sew it shut, you can just seam rip it back open, and it actually leaves kind of a nice line to be able to fold it back to where it should be. So, go just a bit further. Let's see if I managed 4 inches. And I got 3 inches. Close enough, eh? We'll see. Probably wasn't enough. But okay, so now we're going to reach in. You can trim seam allowances if you like. Actually, I think I will. Just don't trim any seam allowances, excuse me, along your opening. Looks like more or less I'm just trimming Insulfleece. That one got a little like too close for comfort. I was getting nervous, so we're just gonna leave it. I think it'll be okay. It's only 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, so anyways, stick your hand in here and try to maneuver this guy out. 4 inches was definitely a better opening to leave than the guessed 3 inches. I actually may have to seam rip this a little bit to get this to come the rest of the way, but we shall see. I always get so warm turning a bag right side out. I'm going to give it some pushes from the other side. Help it get through there. There we go. We did it. All right. Now, getting your hand through 3-inch opening is like impossible, at least for my hands. So, we're going to take our last piece of interfacing. our Peltex and shove that. I just folded it in half and shoved that in there, just like we did for the top. So I actually have the fusible side of my Peltex down. I'm going to warm up my iron here while I smooth this out the rest of the way and finish this up. Just want to make sure that Peltex is in there nice and smooth, flat. Okay. There's one last bit of sewing we need to do. So we're going to take that opening. You can't see. I'm going to take that opening and fold it in. Should be 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, or your chosen seam. If you wanted to add a tag, you could add it here. I'm actually making this for a customer who has previously bought a lunch bag. I don't remember if I put a tag in hers the last time. So I don't want to put it in there and it get in the way or anything. So, you know what? It's not going to get in the way. So I'm just going to put it in there. I don't remember if I put it in her other one, but I have hang tags. So I'm going to fold my tag and just stuff it in right in that opening. All right. So I like to start a little bit before our opening. We're going to use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I've got it on a number 3, so that's where I'm going to leave it. Alright, so we'll push that lining back in. My iron is on. Aw, my tag's upside down. I'll rip that out in a minute. So I have the Peltex in the bottom. It's fusible side down right now. All I'm going to do is hit this with some steam so it fuses and stays intact. So, maybe there. I'm going to just put my iron right in. Take it out and move it. And move it. Remember I said I use the textured side of my canvas for the exterior side. Using that, I have never had it melt. But I have hit the rubbery side, and the rubbery side melts in a second. Sorry about that. Not even a second. It takes a millisecond. My top could use a little bit of a press still, but here is our finished lunchbox. Thanks for sewing with me, y'all. I hope you learned something new today or just had fun. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them below. Thanks. Bye.